Week 14 of the DSFL 6, the Dream Season Football League Series 6, is the series to determine the greatest dynasty in the history of the NFL. The Broncos were a dynasty because they won back-to-back Super Bowls, and after a Christian McCaffrey touchdown, Steve Atwater, their Hall of Fame safety, picks off Cam Newton. Third interception of the year for Steve Atwater, and with a big game from Terrell Davis, the Broncos win the game. Denver is staying alive right now in a tie for first place in the AFC West. The 2000s Tampa Bay Buccaneers don't just have the number one defense. Apparently, they also have the number one special teams in the DSFL 6, because they don't just do this once on a scoop and score on a jolted fumble. They do this twice with two punt return fumble touchdowns, this by John Lynch. So how did the Buccaneers get blown out in this game? It's because the offense is that terrible, and I mean terrible. 12 yards rushing. The Bucs dropped this one by 2 touchdowns. And as we draw to a close to some of the games between terrible teams, the 1980s New York Giants and the 2010s Arizona Cardinals, Joe Morris finds the end zone to put the G-men in front, and then Larry Fitzgerald runs backwards. Well, that's about epitome of the season for Arizona, and Myron Guyton makes the play. The Giants win the ball game, 17-10. Okay, now that so many of the bad teams of the AFC are done with, here's the updated look at the Week 14 playoff picture, and the sequence of note is right there. The top 2 teams in the wild card spot, Miami and Kansas City, are both 7-5 and would be seeds 5 and 6 for the AFC wild card, and they meet in South Florida. The Miami Dolphins of the 1970s. They have come all the way back here, and they, led by Mercury Morris, who had a terrific performance in the game today, they rolled the Kansas City Chiefs 21-3. Bob Greasy would get hurt here, so the quarterback would leave the game for just the quarter. For those of you with a heart attack right now, Miami fans, Greasy will be back for the remainder of the season, at least as scheduled today. Earl Morrall, his first long ball is a touchdown pass to Paul Warfield, who had a sensational performance because he's in the end zone again. Miami just crushes the Kansas City Chiefs of the 2010s, the team that started the year 4-0. They have only won 3 of their last 8. Warfield played well, and the Dolphins humiliates Kansas City and South Florida 38-13. Mark Brunell has had a pretty bad year in terms of the turnovers, 13 interceptions, far more fumbles, and the Jaguar quarterback, product from Washington, would outdo even those numbers in today's game against the 2000s Titans. Here's a fumble forced by Carter and recovered by the Titans. And then to begin the second quarter, he throws an interception right to the linebacker, Keith Bullock. And a couple drives later, he loses the football here and then throws an interception to Marcus Robertson on the following Jaguar drive. And then he, later in the ball game, well, you'd got to believe at some point he would stop throwing to the other team. Samar Roll picks him off and returns 67 yards for a touchdown. The Jaguars have a minus 18 turnover differential this year, 22 giveaways and 4 takeaways. Well, they lose the turnover battle against the Titans today, 6-0, and of course they lose the ball game by the final of 27-10. And now let's look at the NFC as we transition to the conference that may just come down to the final game of the final week of the year. The 60s Green Bay Packers and the 50s Detroit Lions. As you see right there, they're right there, neck and neck for the NFC wild cards. And then the Vikings, they're not far in front of them, so the division is still up for grabs. So this is a huge football game in the NFC North. We're tied at 9 going into the fourth quarter. Paul Hornung of the Packers finds the end zone, so our score is now 16-9 Green Bay. Then Detroit moves downfield, led by quarterback Bobby Lane. That big throw to Cloyce Box, and then the 3rd and goal play here from Willie Davis was a big turning point of the game. Davis leads the DSFL 6 with 14.5 sacks this year. The Packers' Bart Starr, He is in conversations as one of the best quarterbacks in Packers history. Is he the best or is he not? Well, he was the best quarterback on the field, Ford Field, this afternoon as he helps beat the Lions with a game-winning drive. Green Bay victors in Detroit 16-12. Alvin Harper of the Cowboys had a remarkable performance in the game against Baltimore, but the Cowboys lost that. So now there are two other teams that are tied with them for the best record in the NFC. Alvin Harper finds the end zone late in the first quarter, and Dallas controls the game against the lowly Cincinnati Bengals. Yet late in the half, Aikman, throwing right across his body, finds the AFC Defensive Player of the Week, Lawrence Billups, who brings back the interception all the way for a touchdown. The Cowboys could have led by 3 scores. In the fourth quarter, they lead by 3 points. Aikman throws right to Eric Thomas, who brings back the interception over 30 yards, and that leads to the go-ahead Boomer Esiason touchdown pass to Rodney Holman, the star tight end. Cowboys are somehow down 24-20. They convert 1 fourth down with under 2 minutes to go, and then Troy Aikman on 4th and 20, he dials up the deep ball. And Alvin Harper gets behind it. It's a circus catch and a gain of 55. So that's how the Cowboys get into the red zone. They need the 1-yard line to convert another 4th down. And Emmitt Smith looks like he scores. Not only is he stopped short of the end zone, the officials don't even review this, as they say he was short of the 1-yard line. It looked to me like he was beyond the 1-yard line for a first down. The Cowboys have dropped 2 games in a row, and this one is the worst team in the league, the 80s Bengals. 60s Houston Oilers and the 40s Chicago Bears. Sid Luckman this season has thrown 19 touchdowns to 11 interceptions on 66% completions. He has had an incredible year for the Chicago Bears. And with this one-handed Solly Sherman interception, the Bears improved to 6-7 this year, and the Houston Oilers, their playoff hopes are done. Game of the week. Week 14 of the DSFL 6 from the Pacific Northwest. There's no rain in the forecast, too. How about that? The 10s Seattle Seahawks and the 60s New York Jets. Russell Wilson throws 2 touchdowns of the ball game. First to Golden Tate to cap the opening drive. Seattle led the game 7-3. The Jets kept making field goals, so they lead the game late in the third quarter, 12-10. Then Joe Namath on 3rd and 1 from the 5. Finds his man tight end Pete Lamons in the end zone. He gets hurt but will return for next week's ball game for the Jets, and that is against the likes of the St. Louis Rams. Then Bobby Wagner forces his 6th fumble of the season. That is the most in the DSFL 6. That would be a turning point on this fourth quarter drive as Wilson tosses another touchdown, but the Jets still are in a position to win the game right here. Against the Legion of Boom defense, Joe Namath, the Hall of Fame quarterback, would dice them up, back-to-back first downs. Then on 3rd and 6 from the 29, somehow, some reason, some way, they call a screen pass. It stopped short, so the Jets give Seattle and Russell Wilson a chance. And just ask Eli Manning, you'd rather be down by 4 or 5, needing to score a touchdown to win, than down 3, needing a field goal to tie the game, because that creates some pressure. And he was able to deliver 2 Super Bowls, so I'd say that was a pretty good situation for Eli. A gain of 16 with under a minute to go here to Marshawn Lynch. And then here we go, another first down for Russell Wilson. All of a sudden the Seahawks, yes, out of timeouts, they have a 2nd and goal from the 9. Wilson rolls to his right, takes off for the 15-yard line, and Russell Wilson scores the game-winning touchdown. And Seattle, with the first touchdown of the season from Russell Wilson, are all the way back in the playoffs now. Russell Wilson was hurt for a month this year, yet his heroics have kept the Seahawks alive in the NFC wildcard race. Meanwhile, the Jets, their playoff chase is over. Well, for these two teams, their season is far from over. 2000's Colts and the 1970s Oakland Raiders. In the third quarter from Las Vegas, Anthony Gonzalez finds the end zone. the highest-rated quarterback in the DSFL 6, and Ken Sabler finds the end zone too, but Manning throws his league-high 21st touchdown pass of the season to Brian Fletcher. The Colts win the game, and the Colts clinch the AFC South. Magnificent season for the 2000s Colts, the dynasty that won just one Super Bowl. Well, they're playoff bound with their win against Oakland. I think the 80s 49ers are playoff bound against the 80s Washington Redskins. Their topsy-turvy roller coaster season continues. It's a long 75-yard touchdown pass here to John Taylor, but the 80s 49ers, for every week that they have a great performance on offense and defense, they have 1 week where they do something like this. The offense could do next to nothing for the game against the Redskins in a 20-10 home loss. Joe Montana is getting tired of the roller coaster this year. Only 3 weeks remain in the regular season. The Niners haven't clinched anything yet as Washington wins the game on the road 20-10. The Saints of the 2010s haven't clinched the NFC South either, but they are basically on their way to the playoffs regardless of what happens, as the Saints put on a scoring fest against the Philadelphia Eagles. Jeremy Shockey will be the tight end starting for the Saints the rest of the season because Jimmy Graham is out with an injury, and New Orleans, it doesn't matter. They win the game in Philadelphia 24-10. It's the Lance Allworth Show in San Diego. Fresh off his 123-yard performance a week ago, the Charger receiver would have an even better game against the dismal Atlanta defense, as early in the second quarter he gets behind the Falcons for this 61-yard touchdown and then reels in a 91-yard beauty for San Diego. The Charger receiver is dominating the league this year. The Hall of Famer from Arkansas, maybe the second-best receiver ever. Chargers win the game 34-20. Well, both the teams from a moment ago, they will not make the playoffs. The Steelers have clinched the postseason with their win against Buffalo on Sunday night as Terry Bradshaw and company dominate the Bills. And now Buffalo at 6-7, losers of 2 straight. All of a sudden, their playoff hopes are in jeopardy as the Bills would not make the postseason, and they have to beat the Broncos next week to have a chance, as Buffalo is below 500 now for the first time this year. Steelers dominates 34-6. The 2010s Ravens and the 1940s Cleveland Browns. Just when you think you have the Browns figured out, all of a sudden you don't. At least that's me. That's my experience. Horace Gillum gets behind the defense. End of 3, Browns lead the game 20-10. Ravens put together a long drive. Rice finds the end zone. The defense makes the stop. Another long drive. Rice finds the end zone again. The defense makes one more stop. And Baltimore pulls off the road upset. 24-20, the Ravens win the game, and they have upset the apple cart in the AFC North because the Browns have fallen to the 7 seed, and there is no playoffs to be clinched for them next week. Here's a look at if the playoffs were to start today. And now, we are back to the Chargerdude95 Big Board, looking at the AFC North first. As mentioned, the Browns are the 7 seed of the AFC, but the Ravens can turn this whole thing around because, as you can see, Ravens are the 3 spots. They have no opponents over 500. With a division record of 3-2, they hold tiebreakers and have an easy schedule to close the season, and it begins in Week 15 against the dreadful 4-9 Jaguars of the 1990s. By this rate, they may commit 10 turnovers in that game next week against Baltimore. Browns in Week 15 are at the Giants. Meanwhile, the Steelers have clinched the AFC North. The Cincinnati Bengals of the 1980s, they are a load of Now let's head over to the NFC North as the 1970s Minnesota Vikings lead that division at 8-5. But we yet again look at the number 3 team, that is Vince Lombardi's Packers, from 1-3 to 7-6. And as you look at the right, in the bold, the Green Bay Packers have 0 opponents over 500 and a division record of 4-1, which is by far and away the best in the NFC North. Only one team has a division record better in the entire league. So the Packers, they have the red tarmac out to win this division. We'll see if they can do it. It begins next week against 6-7 Carolina. let me let you in on a little bit of secret here in the DSFL 6. For Week 15, the beat the and the pick up a huge win against the. So that's how the DSFL 6 concludes. Make sure to watch all of it next week. This is the DSFL 6, the series that determined the greatest dynasty in NFL history.